Hi, I'm Anna Himali Howard, the director of the Swedish writer Lisa Langseth's play The Woman Who Turned Into a Tree for New Nordics Festival 2020. Unfortunately, the festival was sadly cut short just as it was about to start, but I wanted to share some of what I've learned about Swedish theatre in this online workshop. There's a really interesting theatre culture there which has a lot of connections to UK theatre and even a lot of practitioners, especially writers, in common. It also has a lot in common with German theatre, especially in the way they use dramaturgs both in theatre buildings and in the rehearsal process. There's often a bold and expressionistic visual style and a direct relationship with the audience. In the work that I saw, the form and staging had a close relationship to the themes of the work. There's a strong socio-political focus, with a lot of work around identity, gender and migration, and also a huge variety of different theatre styles across the country. As part of the New Nordics Festival's wider project of making more connections between theatre in the UK and in Nordic countries, I went on a research trip to meet lots of Swedish theatre artists and learn more about the theatre ecology there. Cut the Cord were even kind enough to make sure I travelled flight free, so I can testify to the train journey from London to Stockholm being really lovely. I'm going to start with a quick introduction to some of the organisations I visited to give you a taste of theatre in Stockholm. On the first day of my trip, I visited the University of the Arts in Stockholm and was shown around their theatre department. They run a multi-strand course with actors, designers, directors and producers training within the same cohort and functioning almost like a theatre company. I was shown around the theatre department's facilities, which are designed to function like a large repertory-style theatre with auditoria and rehearsal spaces, fly galleries and rigs for designers and technicians to practice, wig, hair and makeup studios, workshops for costume, set and props, and even mock dressing rooms in which dressers and hair and makeup artists can practice their craft. Already this was an introduction into some of the main differences between theatre in the UK and in Sweden. With a lot more state funding available, their repertory system is more robust and they prepare emerging artists accordingly, although they are increasingly making the course more interdisciplinary and trying to prepare students for more independent theatre work as well. I was given an incredible tour of RWCMD, a touring theatre company who take a huge variety of work at all scales to venues across Sweden. I learned about their programming model based on democratic membership and saw their theatre building, which houses 9 auditoria and a huge array of touring infrastructure. They programme a varied repertoire every year under the leadership of several artistic directors with different remits, such as children's theatre, dance, deaf theatre, puppetry and new writing, as well as canonical plays. Delegates from hundreds of membership organisations across the country come to an annual showcase at RWCMD where they choose shows from the repertoire for their local venues, which include large purpose-built theatres, village halls and everything in between, based on what they think will suit their local audiences. Every 4 years, the thousands of members of these organisations are invited to Stockholm for an assembly in which they vote in the board of directors of RWCMD and discuss the creative direction of the company. I was really excited by the idea that membership of a theatre could mean more than backstage tours and early booking. In RWCMD, it means having a democratic stake in the work that you see. It also seemed like a way of sharing touring infrastructure that makes financial and ecological sense. I also visited Dramaten, the National Theatre of Sweden, which is a large repertory-style theatre with a traditional classical auditorium and a smaller studio which often houses new writing. They run a thriving writers' lab where they nurture new playwriting, which the dramaturg Jakob Herdwall told me had been inspired by the NT studio in London. I saw 2 very different shows at Dramaten. The first was We Hear You, a one-night-only theatrical adaptation of Greta Thunberg's speeches. It had a huge and varied community cast who stood silently and did some simple movements as the empty stage slowly revolved and audio of the speeches played. The second was Determinism, a new play by Dramaten's incoming artistic director Mattias Andersson. The play was set in a wealthy home and played on aesthetic shorthands of Swedish class expression, clashing young and crucially not white people in neon sportswear with a set that was all neutrals and sleek ornaments and beige furnishings. Like We Hear You, it had a very non-fictional basis and started with the question of whether we have free will and how we end up playing the roles we do. On my trip, I also met independent artists like dramaturgs, writers and designers, and we talked about the similarities and differences between our theatre cultures. Many of these artists had worked or studied in the UK, and it was clear that there's already a really strong relationship between the two countries, especially when it comes to new writing. We also had a lot of shared concerns, especially about the impact of austerity on the arts in the UK and Sweden, increasing reliance on the philanthropic model, and the rise of the far right in politics and in the streets. One of the main takeaways for me from my research trip to Sweden is how much collaboration there is between the UK and Sweden already. So a great task for anyone who's interested in working internationally, especially from the UK to the Nordic regions, would be to look at programming at places like Riksteatern and Dramaten and get to know which British artists audiences are already seeing there, as well as in other theatres and companies all around Sweden. Lots of dramaturgs, directors and programmers from Sweden are frequently in the UK, and you could invite them to see your work or send them information about new plays that you're working on. There are also lots of amazing Swedish writers whose work is translated into English, and a quick email to a literary agency like Columbine could put you in touch with them. It would be amazing if that cultural exchange became even more two-way. When I came back, I started working on The Woman Who Turned Into a Tree with actor Ellis Stevens and designer Cara Evans. The play is about a young woman, Daphne, living in a big city, which we took to be Stockholm, but could easily be interpreted as another city. She has a fixation on fashion, class presentation, and how she is perceived, and this informed our process throughout. The design we created was evocative of a department store fitting room, with pale neutral curtains, white cardboard shopping bags, and a big mirror overhead curving around the back of the stage. It spoke to her feeling of always being watched, and brought out some of the themes of fashion and clothes while still being versatile enough to hold the scenes which are in her room, or the club where she works. Watching determinism in Stockholm had made me think a lot about class presentation, but also home spaces and design, and the differences there are between the UK and Sweden in that respect. Daphne spends a lot of time in her rented room, and in the play it feels like her clothes are a projection of her public self, and how she configures her space is a reflection of her private self. So during rehearsals we did an exercise about space, which I'll share with you now, which helped us to visualise the space. Using chalk or masking tape, you're going to build up a floor plan of a space that's important in your piece. Start with marking out the size and where the doors and windows are. Decide what you see when you look out of the window and which way the door opens. Then add the furniture, marking it all out on the floor. Think about what's on the walls and go into as much detail as you can when you describe it. You might mark out a desk and then also mark out the objects on the desk. Once you have a really clear picture of the room, set a timer. It might be for 5, 10 or 15 minutes. The actor is going to use this time to get to know this space and what it means to the character. And I find it helps to give the character a simple task to complete. In one improvisation, Ellis's task was to come into the room as Daphne, eat a packet of crisps and go to bed. In another, she did an exercise video. We found that this exercise really unlocked both the character and how we used our non-literal space after we did it, and I hope it's very helpful to you too. The second rehearsal exercise I want to share with you is to do with the form of the show, which is direct address and very up close to the audience. This kind of direct address has been a really strong trend in Swedish theatre in recent years. Daphne is the only person on stage, and one of the main tasks for us was to work out her relationship with the audience, when she's inviting them to watch her, when they're spying on her, how she manages their perception of her. So for this exercise, we're going to combine that direct address form with the idea of staging essays or speeches or philosophical questions. Pick a non-fictional text. It might be a political or philosophical text, a speech, a blog. It helps if there's a clear sense that someone is talking from the first person. If you're working with an actor, give them the text to read directly to you, with as much eye contact as possible. Reflect on who the speaker is. Maybe you decide that the actor is playing themselves, or the writer of the text, or someone else entirely. Who are they speaking to, and what's their relationship with the audience? What are they trying to do to the audience by speaking? Then you're going to comb through the text and see if these things changed. We found that who the audience were definitely changed throughout The Woman Who Turned Into a Tree. This is just a starting point and can lead you on to thinking about what world you could create on stage to hold this text, and how the space might become a character too. I hope it's useful to you. So that was just a quick introduction to Swedish theatre, and I am by no means an expert. This is just my experience of working on an amazing piece of Swedish new writing and getting a flavour of the scene from visiting Stockholm. Cut the Cord have some great resources on international work and Nordic theatre on their website, and hopefully New Nordics Festival will be back soon to bring writers, theatre artists and audiences from the UK and Nordic countries together. Until then, stay safe, and I hope you enjoyed this online workshop. Thanks for watching. Bye.